This podcast was made for Te Reo Irirangi o Aotearoa, nā te māngai pāho I tautoko. Nau mai, hoki mai, ki tēnei kōna ipurangi, ko te wāhanga whakamutunga tēnei. This is the final episode of the podcast. We've been following the story of this tupuna rangatira who visited Poihākina, Sydney in 1805-1806 on a haerenga of discovery. I rangahau ia, I ngā tikanga o te Pākehā, I ngā mea hou hoki. He researched much about Pākehā during his visit, with introductions to John MacArthur to study agriculture, and with Christian chaplain Samuel Marsden to discuss whakapono.
Gentlemen, thank you, Captain, for coming.
May I introduce my friend, Te Pahi, Samuel Marsden.
And then, of course, there was his visit to a courthouse,
I find that the four accused
where he observed a criminal trial, 4 men charged with stealing miti puaka from government stores.
ran, as described by the witness, with the pork.
He was appalled by the outcome of the trial,
Guilty.
pleading with Governor King for their lives. In the previous episode, we learned that 2 of the men were saved, John Roberts and Thomas Baker, and that our family history researcher, Deb Morris from Genealogy Investigations, had an update for us in our quest to find uri of the men. Ka oti rānei te whai. Ko wāhanga rima tēnei, nā uri, the descendants.
What have you been able to find out about them?
Both of them were professional soldiers.
Ko Deb Morris tēnei, I kōrero ana ia mō John Roberts, rāua ko Thomas Baker.
They had been in Australia since about the early 1790s, so they'd been there quite a while. They had always been soldiers throughout their careers. There is somewhat frustratingly quite a lot about professional soldiers, like musters and payrolls and that type of thing. But once they are discharged, often not very much at all.
Nō reira, after the trial, when they were spared the death sentence and eventually returned to civilian life, ka hore ngā tīwhiri atu.
We couldn't find any evidence that they had married, nor that they had had children. So at that point, they were a little bit of a dead end in terms of the research. And it wasn't unusual for professional soldiers not to get married. There may be children, but if there are, they're not listed as their children, possibly.
Nō reira, ka hore he uri o Thomas Baker, rāua ko John Roberts. Ka pēhia a Thomas England.
Again, Thomas England was also a professional soldier. Again, he had come over in the early 1790s before being moved on to Tasmania, and they were guarding the people who were convicts, just like James Keating. He then later became involved with this crime. He was executed. In fact, he was executed before Keating. And again, not married that we could find, and no descendants that we could find.
Let's come to James Keating then.
James Keating was born in Dublin, Ireland. There are a couple of different records about his birth, somewhere around 1770 perhaps, roughly that time period. By the time he was 26, he was a cooper. So he made the barrels that things were kept and stored in, and it was a somewhat specialised trade.
And it was about this time in Dublin that James Keating had his first serious encounter with the law.
Mr. Keating got caught, along with 2 others, stealing tea from a merchant's warehouse. He and both men went to trial. One was acquitted, but Keating and his other co-conspirator were both convicted, and they were sentenced to death. One was indeed executed, but James Keating's sentence was commuted, sending him to Australia as a convict. So he cheated death once. He arrived in Sydney in April 1803, where he met Anne Millbrook.
Kua rangahautia e Deb tēnei wāhine, ko Anne Millbrook. Like James Keating, Anne was a convict.
She had been accused of breaking into an establishment to steal liquor and apparently trying on other people's clothes. She was convicted of that and transported herself. They met in Sydney, and in October of 1803 they got married, by which stage Anne was already pregnant with the first son, their only son. Very shortly after that, they were sent to Tasmania, and it is believed that their son, William Dalrymple Keating, is the first white child to be born in the area, and in fact was possibly born on the boat.
Ko tā Deb, te kaumā ono ngā tamariki a William Keating. Deb Morris says William Keating would go on to have 16 children. Nō reira, he toko maha ngā uri o James Keating. Ko ia tētahi o ngā tāne I awhitia e Te Pahi. There are many descendants of James Keating, one of the men Te Pahi embraced and pleaded on behalf of to Governor King. And with the help of Deb and her colleague Fran Tyler, we tracked down some of those uri. And just like the kōrero on the Taringa podcast had suggested, none of them had any idea about the involvement of the Rangatira in their whānau's story.
What cracks me up is that their ure would be running around Sydney now, you know, and I think to myself, they're probably boy racers or something, and, you know, they would have they'd be none the wiser as to this kōrero, you know, and the importance of...
But in September 2025, some of them flew to Aotearoa, keen to find out. Remember this from the start of the first episode of this podcast? The sound of karanga flowing between two rōpū, manuhiri being called to greet the haukainga. This is on whenua called Pāpoke, a peninsula with sweeping views over Pewhairangi. And right there, standing like a pou in the ocean just offshore, Motuapo, the island where Te Pahi had his pā in the 1800s. The place where he lived, a place where he stored his taonga, including the metera gifted to him by Governor Philip Gidley King. The people of Ngāti Torahina ki Mataka, including Herb Rihari, are joined by their whanaunga from Ngāti Rua, including Deirdre Brown. And on the other side, the manuhiri, ka tau mai ngā uri o James Keating, ki te tūtaki e ngā uri o Te Pahi.
My name's Maren Best, maiden name Keating. I've descended from a long line of Keatings. The furthest back is my fourth great-grandfather, which was James Keating, a convict.
So yeah, this is one of James Keating's descendants. And together with her husband Bill and her daughter Candice, Maren has come to Pewhairangi to meet the uri of Te Pahi. He hono tūpuna, he hono uri.
Here mai e ngā uri a James Keating, here mai kūtu. Here mai ko mātou tēnei ko ngā uri o Te Pahi. Here mai. He honore nui tēnei kia mātou, kia kite a kanohi ai tāu o tahi. Here mai koutou ki te wāhi tapahia nei te pito a te tupuna nei. Tēnei te wāhi tupu ake nei ia I te wāhi aia. Nō reira, e ngā rangatira, e ngā mātua, e ngā whaia koutou mā. Ānei rā ko te reo whakatau. A Ngāti Torahina ki Matakāna ko Ngāti Rua kei konei katoa. Ko ngā uri a te rangatira a te Pahi. Nō mai, here mai.
Ka kahuria ana te whānau Keating ki te korowai o te manaakitanga, e rongo ana I te mahana. Te Pahi's uri draw Maren and her family close, with hongi and awhi, a rekindling of a connection tracing back more than 200 years, as the Hurehanga Rihari explains.
Kia rongo nei rātou, I te mahanatanga te awhi o tēnei hapu. Our tupuna began it when he spoke, but what an honour to generations later fulfill what our tupuna started. What's that? To bring them to the warmth of our awhi, to the warmth of our embrace, so that they will know kia mōhio e rātou, ki te mahanatanga o tō mātou awhi, ki te aloha o ngā uri o Te Pahi. Ne?
For Merrin and her family, this has been a journey of discovery itself. I mua atu I tēnei kaupapa, kaore o rātou mōhiotanga ki a Te Pahi.
He just sounds like an amazing man, doesn't he? Yeah, must have been a very intelligent man. Very thoughtful, compassionate. Better than the British.
This journey has also prompted Merrin to reflect on the life of her own tupuna, James Keating, a man she wasn't told about when she was growing up. Ka hore he kōrero mō James Keating, I wainga I tōna whānau mō te wā roa.
It was a great shame. People were ashamed of it. Even in Tasmania, right up till recently, they were very ashamed of their convict heritage.
But Merrin sees James in a different light. He nui te aroha, he nui hoki te mamai mō tōna tupuna.
He has just had a really hard life and he was a victim. They were all victims, weren't they? Victims of their poverty, really, and hunger. It was just horrendous, wasn't it? But I think he probably wasn't the only one. They were just so cruel to the convicts.
Meeting Te Pahi's uri has been an emotional experience for Merrin, Bill and Candice. Ka rere nā roimata.
It was just quite overwhelming right from when we walked up. That was the start, and I think after that, it was just amazing. You know, never experienced anything like it, really. And the friendship too, and the connection that they felt was really quite special.
It was as if that bond, more than 2 centuries old, had been renewed. Uri, on 2 sides of the Tasman, from 2 different worlds, had found much in common. Stories of injustice and mamai, but also stories of hope and aroha. As the same winds which once pushed Te Pahi to Sydney blew across the sparkling tides that carried him, Deirdre Brown stood to speak to James Keating's descendants to explain to them just what this meeting had meant.
I feel in the same way that we repatriated the Te Pahi medal 11 years ago, and what a fight that was. I feel, and if you forgive me for saying this, I feel that we've repatriated you today. And you are part of our whānau now, and you were always going to be part of our whānau. And I know, as Ngāti Roa, Ngāti Puraki are the same, but as Ngāti Roa, and having a terrible crime committed against us, and having to live with a falsehood, under that falsehood that we were responsible for something that we didn't do, and the intergenerational effect that it has had for our people over 200 years, and having to hide an important history, which was a history of mana at the end of the day. As I understand, you have uncovered your story. So I stand here today as your whānau. I'm very proud to be here on my whenua, speaking with you today. Good account.
Thank you.
So many years after Te Pahi embraced and spoke with those prisoners in that small room in Poihākina, their kōrero continues. Kanohi ki te kanohi, nākau ki te nākau, uri ki te uri. He mai aroha ki a matua hurihari. Moi mai rā I te rangatira. That was the final episode of the 5-part Te Pahi podcast, written and presented by me, Eugene Bingham, of Te Pūrongo Productions. As well as this podcast version, Te Pahi's haerenga is told in a 2-part RNZ video documentary, Te Pahi, the Rangatira, the King and the Survivors. Check the show notes for links to that. There's also a book written by me, published by Eleanor Numwin, called The Chief and the Empire. Writing and podcast editing by Adam Dudding, mixing by Andrew McDowell of DigiCake. Thanks to Tofilau Arthur Rasmussen, Phil Johnson, Ricky Reinfeld, David Green, and Tofilau Wilhelm Gerhard Voigt for sound recordings. Stephanie Huriana Fong is the Paureo Māori. Amanda Beckett is the production manager. Natasha Vella and Grace Dawson have provided production assistance. Stephanie Moorhead transcribed the interviews. Music is from Woodcut Productions and Audio Network. Annabelle Lee Mather and Mihi Narangi Forbes are the executive producers, and Yana Tanahu Owen is the RNZ Commissioner Māori. Shannon Haunui Thompson is the RNZ Tumu Māori, and Justine Murray and William Ray were script advisors. E rere ana a mātou mihi nunui kia Herb Rihari, Deirdre Brown, Te Hurihanga Rihari, Waitangi Wood, Dame Anne Salmon, Hohepa Ruhe, Mel Lowe, David Roberts, Bethany Schiffer, Uncle Dean Kelly, Merrin Best, Bill Best, and Candace Best, as well as Deb Morris and Fran Tyler of Genealogy Investigations, Tim Robinson and staff at The Landing, and Sam Elworthy at Waipapa Tau Matarau. Nā te torahina ki mataka, nā te rua, nā uri katoa o Te Pahi, nei rā te mihi, nei rā te mihi, nei rā te mihi. Produced for RNZ by Aotearoa Media Collective with funding from Te Māngai Pāho.
Ko te reo